Hi everyone. In today's video, I have the pleasure of receiving Dr. Carlos Perralada, who studied personally the Eucharistic miracle of Tixtla that occurred in 2006 in Mexico, and he is one of the scientists who was part of the investigation that was conducted after the miracle took place to make sure it was myocardic tissue with white blood cells and from the AB group, blood group. And so Carlos will tell us what he did exactly in this investigation, and he has a PowerPoint prepared for us today. But first of all, Carlo, hello and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Matthew, and thank you very much for all the people that are listening. Uh, I know sometimes for some people this could be some controversial uh, issues, but I'm going to explain how I see it and what were the things that I did and all the findings that we got. Um, Thank you for the time. With Tixla is a very small village in Mexico, and it's very close, about 1 hour from Acapulco and Chilpancingo de los Bravos. Now, this is a very small community. What happened here is that they were in a retreat, but the church was too small. So the priest asked for the mayor if he can have the community space saloon, and so he was giving all the community center, and they had the retreat there. And on Sunday, they invited some another priest that is very good um, talker, and after the talk and everything, they had mass. And when they had mass, some of the nuns were there, and they helped the priest to give the communion. So one of the nuns took the cup with the host, and we're going to start give the communion to the people. And when she was going to take the first one, she saw a host with a red spot in it. So she turned back to the priest. She kneeled down, crying, and he said, "Father, look." And the father looked at it, and then he took the host and raised it and said, "Look, a miracle." And all the people there start crying and singing uh, Cristo Rey. It's a Mexican song for the King, Christ the King. Now, why did he do that? And it's because 20 years before, he had another experience of that, and then the bishop in that time said, "Well, you consume it." And he said, "Why? Why? Because we have to show the people. No, you consume it." And well, he obeyed, and he was like with this feeling that he has to show to the people. So that's what he did at this time. Um, After that, he went to the bishop, is Monsignor Julio Zavala, in that time, and they started all the investigations with the people, and everybody was with the same uh, relationship, with the same. Sorry about my English. With the same um, um, telling about what happened. And 3 years later, then Monsignor Zavala contacted Dr. Castañon, asked Dr. Castañon, "Can you please do this investigation?" And he said, "Yes. I want you to show me if somebody put some blood in there or a tint, a red tint. And can you do that?" And I was like, "I'm going to try to do my best." So that's why the investigation started. After the investigations, there was a big symposium in Chilpancingo in 2013, in where we all presented all the results. I'm here in the right of the picture. Then Dr. Sanchez Lazos, the bishop, Dr. Castañon, and there was another priest here that we cannot see. Okay, and after the symposium, everything was fine, and we're going to go through this. The researchers were from the United States. It was a pathologist. Then from Guatemala, we got two pathologists and myself. Then from Bolivia, another pathologist. From Mexico, Bolivia, and the United States. Okay, this is important, even though it's not a really scientific method of investigation, but it was an observational method. What we wanted to see is what was there. We're not going to compare it. We were not going to do what we call a match comparison, something like that. So none of the pathologists in these studies knew the origin of the samples. They were told that it was not possible to let them know the origin and that they only had to describe exactly what they were seeing. So we just call a blind study. If it would be a double blind study, then probably I wouldn't know where the origin of this sample was coming from, but I did know. So I just told the pathologist, so it's just a blind study, not double blind. Okay. Now the first results went to John Compine in California, and he said, "What I find is just protein structures in a state of deterioration, suggesting mesenchymal cells. Remember that we're talking about a host that had some blood stain or blood effusion or red fusion, and they took a little sample from that and took it to this Dr. Compagno. So it was bread that had these changes, okay? And the pathologist said all this. Then Dr. Castañon came here to Guatemala once, and then I was on call here in the hospital, but my wife went to a retreat with him. And he was talking about everything like that, and he said, my wife said, come here to the retreat. It's very nice. It's very good. So I went there, and then after the retreat, um, the the Dr. Castañon came with my wife, and she introduced me to him, and he said, "You know what's mesenchymal cells?" And I said, "Well, yes, those are some cells that are from embryologic origin, and actually they can uh, become different kind of tissues like bone or skin or fat or muscle, whatever, depending of which part of the embryo you're talking about." And then he said, "Oh, now I understand," because he didn't know what was this going, what the pathologist in California wanted to say. Now, remember that Dr. Castañon is not a medical doctor; he's a psychologist. So and he's doing the investigation. That's not a medical doctor. So probably that's one of the reasons he didn't have very a good scientific protocol. You know. Okay. Um, so he said, "Can you help me with this investigation?" I said, "Yes." That's why I entered here. And we had first a slide review with my pathologist here in Guatemala, and then we took another sample. In the review here, now we have, we call it unknown patient sample. And interestingly, what we found was that we have some white blood cells like neutrophils here. Can you see the arrow? Okay. This is a neutrophil or that has no really um, just one stain or another one. We have eosinophiles that they stain in orange, and then we have some basophils that stain in very dark blue. Now, all these red stuff here are red cells that are really like clumps. They're not really uh, in the very flow like in the blood. They are like clumps, but they're not clots yet. Okay, so this looks like some kind of inflammation in the tissue. But the interesting part is this cell here to the right. And this is a vacuolated cell. And it's very big with some white bubbles inside. And when I asked the pathologist, we were seeing this live with him, and I asked the pathologist, what is this cell? And he said, well, this is a macrophage. And remember that in Buenos Aires, they found macrophage as well. So this is a macrophage. And what's that doing? Well, this macrophage, in the moment that you took the sample, it was eating some fat cells. When you mean eating, what do you mean? Well, in this very moment that you took the sample from this tissue person, that macrophage was eating some fat cells. Okay, so we were like amazed. And these are some fat cells here, and also in the other slide, we have the red cells as well. Okay, then we carry on, and we saw these fibers, and he said, well, these are some impaired fibrillar structures with some nuclei. and they're suggestive of myocytes. Those are the cells from the muscles. But it's very difficult to determine. Why? Because it's so deteriorated. I mean, they're damaged. And remember, this was the miracle happened in 2006, and we were looking at this in 2011 and 2012. And the sample also in this miracle was not preserved in anything else than just in a container and nothing inside. Okay, so what we had said, okay, we had to make another sample. I told Dr. Castellano, look, what we do for samples when we got in surgery is to put it in formaldehyde, because the formaldehyde uh, keeps the proteins intact, and it's like you stop the time that you do the sample and you put it there. It's like everything stopped, and the pathologist can just see exactly what happened in the moment you took the sample. So we have all the permissions again to take another sample, and Bishop gave us the permission. We had the host with Dr. Castañon, and we took another sample. Now, in that moment, I had the honor to have the personalization of new fragment and preserve it in formaldehyde. With that, we took the sample and we did everything that we do in pathology, the part of in blood formation, etc. And we can see the purple or the red part here and the white part here because I took from red to the board to the origin. It was to red to white. Uh, this is the purple coloring and the white coloring. Okay, so the results we have here with the pathologist. This is Dr. Um, Orlando Rodas. This is myself. We're reviewing these samples here in this computer. Um, okay, and we saw the same findings. So we got a lot of red cells like clumps. We got all these figures here stained in purple or uh, dark blue. And here's a neutrophil. Here's a lymphocyte. Uh, here's another neutrophil. And these are white blood cells. Again, this is white blood cells. Again, another white blood cells with red clumps. Another picture about the same thing. And then we got this white part. This white part is just um, uh, the vegetable tissue from the wheat flour, okay? Because not the whole host became um, red. It's just in the center. Um, and then we got these fibers here. Remember, this time we got it in formaldehyde. And we said, well, what do you see here? And he said, well, we have some fiber muscles, muscle fiber, sorry. And then he said, and we can probably tell the origin. So which one is the origin? This is heart muscle. How do you know? Because usually the heart muscle, the fiber divides in two, and then another one here divides in two, and each one was going to divide in two and get with the another one coming from the other side dividing in two, and they make like this like net, and the heart muscle is the only one that has this characteristic of a net that keeps automatization in bumping or moving, and that's why he knew he was from the heart muscle. He couldn't say it was left ventricle or not. Just we knew it was just heart muscle. This is another explanation here, and so you see that one of the fibers here divides in two here and gets attached to another one, comes here to another one, this, and that's what makes this net. Okay, so we did some immunohistochemistry, and we did the antibody desmin. It was for looking for some different tissues, and it was negative. And the myoglobin that we were amazed that it was negative because we thought muscle fibers. It was negative in this time, and the pathologist said, look, sometimes when the deterioration of the tissue is there, the antibodies are negative. But then we did antibody for vimentin, and it was positive. The vimentin colored these white blood cells, and this explained that the white blood cells that we see here are human origin. Um, and it's from this tissue, okay? Okay. Then another tests were done in Mexico and Bolivia. And in Mexico, this is very amazing because in Mexico, it was a forensic pathology that did all the investigations, and he found with a very small quantity of blood in the tissue. He had the original host to look for. We had just a little sample, you know. So he found blood of the group AB with presence of hemoglobin. And this is the same type as in the Turing cloth and Lanciano consecrated host. And also he did some tests of light emission with electronic microscopy. And what he found here is that the surface of the host usually every time they see it in this microscope test of light emission, we're looking fresh every time. And they say, how is it possible? We got these 3 months with us, and this is still fresh. And then they took this um, host and took it in the middle, and they saw from every view. And what they could see with microscopic electronic is that from the middle of the white of the host, that you can see that one of the hosts is very very small. And from the middle, it just came like a river flow of something red coming out every time they saw this. So that was amazing. They said, never in my life we saw something like this. And if you can explain this because if I get something in the surface of the table and then I put some um, tint or whatever in a constant drop to this surface, what we're going to have is that from the a little small point of the tint, and it's going to come straight forward to the surface in the posterior side. But what they saw here was the backwards. So from the middle coming up to the anterior surface. So that was amazing. They couldn't explain everything like that, and it was something dynamic. It was not nothing like just a picture. They saw it every time they were looking for it. Okay, so that was amazing. So one of the comments says that the histopathology finds of the structure remains us of deteriorated red blood cells, white blood cells, and deteriorated cardiac muscle fibers. All these cells are mesenchymatous cell origin. But that's why the first pathology in the United States wanted to say. But when he was approached to explain it, they could never get him to explain it. So that's what Dr. Castañeda lost in that way. So we thought about doing DNA studies because some of the morphology of the cells cannot be established the origin of this category. So we did DNA tests, and we did in Bolivia, Mexico, and Guatemala. And what this uh, technician said that she got the presence of DNA amino acid chains. We got presence of DNA. Well, they said that the DNA was completely degraded and fragmented, so a completely genetic profile cannot be obtained. And in Mexico and Bolivia, they got the same results. Now, in summary, the substance in human blood type AB, with presence of hemoglobin, red blood cells, and different white blood cells, human DNA presence without a genetic profile. Same findings in other consecrated hosts with similar fusions. Also the same as in Poland, you have the Zakowska and I forgot the other one. Okay, but you have the same results as well. Um, we got mesenchymal cells, heart tissue, inflammation of the heart tissue due to presence of white blood cells, and this actually could be um, known as the tissue was alive in the moment of taking the, the sample. Here in every miracle is the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Christ. And he's always telling us, I am. And again, John 6 and 51, he says again, I am the living bread. Why did he say living? I never thought about this after we did these studies, and he's the living bread because it's alive. Actually, I cannot say anything else because all the um, findings, scientific one that we have here, makes it possible to be from a dead person. So thank you very much.